So, namaste. So we are here in Satsang today for the highest of reasons, the culmination of human evolution is to realize the essence, the true essence of our real nature, our being, what it actually is, who we really are. And that is something very different to what we might have thought we were. This illusion persists for quite some time that we are a separate person living in a body, separate to everyone else, that there are an infinite number of beings, and that when the body goes, we go. So we're here in Satsang to turn that around to the experiential, lived and effortless, constant realization of who we really are. What does it actually mean to live when we constantly know who we are effortlessly, that it's not a remembering mentally anymore? What does that actually entail? Well, for me, I can only ever speak from my own experience, and for me that was a peace, a deep and profound peace. And it's not something up here that we're carrying around. This understanding that I'm not separate to anyone else, it drops deeper than the mind. It drops into the heart, and then even eventually right deep down into the cells of the body. And this understanding that I'm not separate, really, that there's only one of us here, no matter what our mind may think, results in this deep, deep quietness and peace, a lack of fear completely, eventually. And then that manifests as a kind of deep love and intimacy for all of life, all of existence. Because underneath our mind's ideas, we know deep down that it's always ourselves that we're meeting. Even if we think we're meeting someone else, we never really have, actually. So we all need reminding of who we really are until we don't anymore, until it's become effortless. And that's what Satsang is for. And any authentic teacher, their role really is just to keep saying the same thing over and over again, which is all I'm doing here, showing the same thing over and over again. And each time we see it, it cuts through the fog or the veil of illusion that we are this someone, and begins to quieten the mind down when we realize deeper and deeper that what we're thinking about, who we're thinking about, where we're trying to get to, who we're trying to become, might not be actually based on reality. That the actual reality is that there is only one being here in existence. And it's manifesting, appearing as all of this universe, in fact. So all of our thought processes about what to do about this other being, what to do about this other thing that we want or need or want to get rid of, become less and less relevant, and eventually we're just not interested anymore. And that takes as long as it takes, but we can fuel that by speed that process by coming to Satsang like this. So I wanted to take a different look at self-inquiry today, to do some self-inquiry here live, because for me, self-inquiry was perhaps the thing I was confused about most for the longest time. So I had the sense when I first came across this phrase that it was something to do with the mind, self-inquiry, something that the mind had to get. And my mind, like everybody's, tried to make it very complicated as a way of resisting doing it. If it feels too complicated, I don't want to go there, that kind of feeling. I'm never going to be able to figure it out. And I was actually surprised and delighted to discover that it's one of the simplest things we can actually ever do, self-inquiry. So Self-inquiry could be as simple as asking to find out who we really are, what we really are, and then noticing the answers. And most of us have this belief that it's hard to find out who we are, and we experience that belief. And it's even harder, perhaps, we feel, to live as that. So I really wanted to approach self-inquiry from a different perspective today, in a way that I've called very lightly the inclusive method. We perhaps may be more familiar with the kind of neti approach, which just means everything that I perceive, I am not that. I'm not my body. In an attempt to get down to the most essential core of my being. And we will, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my experiences, I'm not my desires, I'm not my body. On and on and on it goes until I'm left with nothing, literally no thingness. That must be what I am. And that's the only thing that's not going to go. Well, this has worked for many, many beings. I never kind of got to grips with that way, at least at first. And I stumbled upon this way. I'm sure many other teachers have done it, but I stumbled across this way in my own inquiry of including everything. And I had this epiphany one day that maybe the answers to the question, who am I, what am I, are so immediately obvious that we can't accept them, that we don't accept them. So we're going to do this now, and anyone that wants to follow along is more than welcome to join along. And we're going to ask this question that really worked for me: what am I? And if you prefer, you can substitute the question, who am I? Or when we've used where am I? Whichever one you like. But I'm going to go with the question, what am I? Just for sake of what really worked for me. And we're going to accept that if we are the only thing in existence, the moment we ask this question, we must receive an answer. So it's about opening up and including all the answers we wouldn't have previously included as answers. So let's have a go with this now, and you might perhaps begin to see self-inquiry in a different light. So as we begin, let's try and keep our eyes open, at least at first. I'm going to ask this question, what am I? Now, immediately, as I ask that question, I can hear a computer fan going. So there's my first answer. I am the computer fan. I can also hear my own breathing. I am my breathing. I notice my body sitting here. I am my body too. I can hear the birds singing outside the back of the house. I am the bird singing, the bird song. I can feel the air touching my face. I am the air too. Car just drove past outside my house as I was saying that last sentence. I am that car too. These might be answers that we wouldn't normally include in a question. And as human beings, we tend to fixate only on the answers that appear between our ears or feel inside our body. So this inclusive method is really just a way of opening up to all the answers that are being given right now. My body feels quite warm, so I am that heat. What else am I? Well, I am this and these. There's another person in the room, another body in the room with me, Claire. I am Claire too. I see all of you. I am you too. And this way of opening up to who we really are is so immediate that perhaps we might reject it. I am all the objects in the room that I'm perceiving. Everything my senses are taking in, I am that. And if I am you, I'm also everything that your senses are perceiving. If someone were to knock on the door, or a phone was to ring, or an ambulance siren went off, I'd be all of those too. If I got an itch or I had to sneeze, I'd be those too. This might be a different way of doing self-inquiry than you're used to. But just feeling that your body can recognize the truth of the immediacy of this way of doing it. In between these words, there's a silent stillness. I am that too. There's a spaciousness in between all the objects. It's also silence. Same. I am that. But that is just another answer here in this inquiry. It's not the answer. It's not even the right answer. There isn't a right answer. There's just the question, what am I? And all the answers. Just looking around your environment, listening to what you're actually hearing. What subtle sounds? What subtle answers are you getting right now? Are there any smells? Are you hot or cold? Can you accept that these are answers to this most important question? What really am I? Self-inquiry for me became so very immediate. Or I saw that it had always been. The moment I'd wanted to find out what I was, the very first time I realized there was something to realize, life was answering that question consistently and continuously. And it took me all that time to learn to receive the actual answers. Wherever my body could go, if it could go to the other side of the universe somehow, to a distant galaxy, I would also be everything I was experiencing there and everything in between. I am these words. I am your experience. And when we use this inclusive method, our body begins to relax. The more that we're open and focused on the question, not trying to find any answers, because the answers are just all coming. Naturally, there's peace. Because we're not limiting ourselves to any particular definition. We're not even saying, I am the silence and I'm not these words, these sounds. We're including everything, phenomena, and that which they arise from, all objects, and that which is not an object. If some fear were to arise, I am that too, another answer. If I feel confused, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right, I am that confusion too. If I have an epiphany, an aha moment, I am that too. But your whole life then Every experience, every moment be an answer to this question, what am I? I am my boss when he's angry. I am my friend's birthday party. I am the airplane. On, on and on and on with phenomenal answers. And the noticing more and more constantly of the non-phenomenal answer, the noumenon, the silence, stillness, consciousness, presence, whatever you want to call that. Not even preferring the noumenon over the phenomena, because they're really one and the same. So could the answer to this question be not so much of a thought process or even an epiphany, although those are fine, but a lived, constant receiving of the answers to this question? Life is showing you constantly what you really are. And really moving away from trying to find a final answer, because there isn't one. There is one answer that's always present, the silence, the stillness, and we come to notice it more. But it's not really the right answer. There isn't one. It's just the only constant answer. Doesn't make it better. Doesn't make it any different to the phenomenal answers which are coming and going. So just checking your environment around you, noticing the subtle answers you're receiving even now. Noticing that your body begins to really resonate with this inclusive method. There's no work here to do. There's just an opening up to all the different types of answer that we receive to this powerful question. What really am I? And we might even begin to realize that we've only really suffered because we valued our mind's answers more than everything else and excluded perhaps everything else. That we only value mind's answers, thoughts. We experience those. We can simply open up at any point and see what other answers we're missing out on. Maybe self-inquiry then becomes something that we be rather than we do. Becomes a way of living, a mode of being, where everything we encounter, internal phenomena, thoughts, experiences, emotions, sense perception, everything external, seeming other beings, other things, begin to be recognized as our very own self. The more we practice this inclusive, open way of inquiring, more and more obvious it becomes that all of this is you. That these words aren't coming from somewhere outside of you, they're coming from inside your own being, the only being. And maybe life can be simply a process of life showing us which answers we have excluded because we don't like them. Fear, guilt, shame, anger, other beings that we have a challenge with. And being willing to include them. That is also me. This is how I'm showing up right now. I'm also appearing as this shame, this frustration, this irritated person in front of me at the supermarket. You can appear an infinite number of ways. And as you practice like this, you lose the attachment to the particular body that's here right now. I am all of these bodies. Bodies are coming and going constantly. Yes, we look after and value this body, but we need not be scared when it's gone. And we recognize we are all of existence. So just for right now, just for in terms of getting used to self-inquiry, if you like it like this, if this has been easier for you, then this will take you all the way into full realization. Just remembering gently to ask the question throughout the day, what am I? What else am I? And seeing every now and again if we haven't closed up and begun to exclude things that we think are external, sounds and other people and all of that. Out of habit, we close back up again and start to listen to thoughts and emotions really only. We give them a specialness over everything else that's in existence. But here in this way of inquiring, a thought is really no more special than a sofa, or a human body, or a cloud. They all have the sameness. It's just another way I am appearing. I'm appearing as this judgmental thought, as this angry thought. I'm appearing as bliss, or peace, or frustration, or sadness, or snow, or sunshine. I'm appearing as the smallest subatomic particle and the whole universe itself. Anything that I can perceive, there must be an answer to this question. What really am I? Can we accept that it can be this simple and direct? Do we have to make it more complicated than this? That just living like this for a while, it becomes a habit where you somehow in the middle of all that forget how to divide yourself into me and other. The more we include, the bigger our self-definition gets until it becomes as big as the universe and its source. And that really need not take very long at all. What takes the time is our habit of closing back up, excluding again. So for a little while, you'll be opening up, including, forgetting about that and focusing back on thoughts and beginning to suffer. And then you'll open up again and feel peaceful, expansive, and then you'll close down again. After a little while, with consistency, you'll forget how to focus on only one type of answer on thoughts. So I hope that you've had a different experience of self-inquiry than maybe you've had before. I hope that it is more accessible and perhaps more pleasant and peaceful and much more effortless. It really is just about asking the question and being open to see how immediate the answers might be to that. Being willing to see the different types of answers. Things that perhaps you wouldn't normally class as answers to a question. The bird singing, the siren wailing, the rain falling. And yet they are here. When I ask the question, what I experience must be the answer. So I'm going to read a couple of questions that have been emailed in, and I'll open it up for questions here, up to 3 questions live online. So this question says, "Hi Helen, who is deciding? Every time I'm faced with decision making, I have the tendency to become unconscious. I try to stay aware in the moment, but somehow I get lost. I don't know how my mind traps me again and again, but it's very painful. How to dissolve the identity as the doer or the decider completely. Thanks and heartfelt love to you." So every time I'm faced with decision making, I have the tendency to become unconscious. So that would be right where I question right there. If I was in your position and have been, I would be asking, am I the one having to make a decision here? Because it really feels like it, doesn't it? We were talking about this in the Sangha the other day. If some fear comes up in my body and I'm trying to decide whether I should just try to be with it or ask a question about it, or I notice I'm resisting it, there's a sense of a doer that has to decide which one. But if we just let that sense arise, it can also be another answer in this moment. So there's some fear. There's the seeming someone who needs to decide. And then there's whatever happens after that. We just let that I need to decide feeling arise and pass through the body. We can do our best to not hold on to that. You'll see immediately some kind of solution appears. The moment you don't grasp onto that, this idea that you have to make a decision, then you'll see it's not true for you. You're just watching as the silence. You are the space in which the question and all the answers appear. Am I really deciding? Am I really doing? And this moment of going unconscious as the decision arises, it's simply this valuing of thoughts more than any other answer. So in that moment, some decision needs to be made, or seems to need to be made. Can you open up and notice what else is going on in your experience at that moment? Is there frustration or some negative emotion, another answer going on there? Is there some sound in your environment? Are there other beings around you? So it's as if you've already asked this question, what am I? And this urge to decide, this sense that you have to decide is showing up as an answer. I am this seeming someone, but not actual. So don't try to change your mind. Your mind will always think that it's the doer, that you're the doer and decider. And it doesn't have the capacity to actually change that. And you don't need to change that. You just need to be clear in yourself. I am that. I'm everything in manifestation. I'm the source of all manifestation. So I don't need to do anything with this. This is just another manifestation. The sense of the doer. So hope that helps. I'll read one more and then I'll come to hands here. Namaste, Helen. I want to share my experience and doubts with you. Although I have realized that there is a watcher of my thoughts and sensations, I do get lost in thoughts most of the time. Even though I know that thoughts of getting back to seeing are also being watched, still my practice is not going well. I know in thoughts there is no separation, yet it is not my experience. Please help me. I want to thank you for your Satsang videos and would wish to meet you when you come to India. That'd be really, really nice. Hopefully you can come along and join us in January. It'd be lovely to physically meet. So, you know that you're watching thoughts. And if you have seen, even theoretically, even mentally, that you are watching these thoughts, even thoughts about how do I get back from here, then you have to use that then to discern when the next problem comes up that your mind gives you. Mind says you keep getting drawn into thoughts and getting lost in thoughts. You know, even theoretically, that you're watching thoughts. So using your powerful intelligence to discern, is this your problem then? If you're the one watching thoughts and you seem to be getting pulled in and having to work your way back, in and out, in and out, in and out, is that really your problem? And you can also see evidence that this is not your problem when you realize you've tried to come out and it doesn't work. You keep trying to come out and stay out of thoughts. It doesn't work. Get pulled back in like a yo-yo because you're trying to do something that you don't need to do. So when that sense arises, oh, I'm getting lost in my thoughts again, or when you realize 20 minutes later, 2 hours later, wow, I've been stuck in thoughts for 2 hours, having a miserable time. Just weighing that against what you actually know to be true. Can that actually be so? Do I need to make any effort to extricate myself from thoughts and try to stay out of thoughts if I'm already just watching? You stand there. You stand there firm like a mountain. No matter what my experience seems to be, I seem to be getting pulled in. I'm not going to try to do anything about this because I've just seen that I'm standing here. I'm the witness of thoughts. The moment you don't try to fix this in and out, you just watch it. You realize that that is attention, not you. Attention is going from looking at the real you to mind. When it looks at mind, the body feels tight and tense and contracted and all kinds of negative emotion and suffering. Turns back around, looks at the real you. The body feels light and open and free and spacious. Turns this way, suffering, freedom, suffering, freedom, suffering, freedom. And this goes on as long as we think this is us, attention. You know, though, where your attention is. You know that your attention is lost in thoughts, or you could tell me afterwards, my attention was totally gone with the mind for like 2 days even. Or for that 20 minutes, I was crystal clear. My attention was on the infinite self, and I was so peaceful. So see what happens when you stop trying to fix this problem. And I know it's not the answer mind would like me to say. I'd like to give you some super duper technique that you can apply. But you can't fix this. And all the awakened beings have realized, I don't need to, actually. What happens to the attention is really nothing to do with me. I'm here watching attention. And when I stand firm here, this stops, comes to rest, looking at the real you. And then the mind goes quiet because there's nothing energizing it, fueling it. So hopefully that helps. You're trying to fix something that's mind's problem, not yours. It took me a long time to figure that out. Look forward to meeting you. Okay, Michael, when you're ready.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I enjoyed the presentation and the neti reference aroused an interest in reacquainting myself with that term, which, as you said, can be helpful in its traditional format of removing the ordinary associations, but flipping it on its head and including everything, as you suggested. Maybe the neti is seeing the places, in my own case, where maybe I over-identify with negative emotions, whether it be fear or unworthiness and so on and so forth. And taking the neti approach to those excessive self-identifications and putting it more back into proportion in the total inclusion of what I am. Yeah. That's my interpretation, and I'm open to your feedback.
Absolutely, yeah. We're only really suffering from where we're over-identified with certain particular thoughts and particular emotions, isn't it? So if that feels helpful for you, then absolutely. Sounds like a good idea. Yeah. Wonderful. Nice to talk to you.
Always.
Thank you. We'll go to Kavita. Hope I said that correctly.
Namaste.
Namaste.
So I wanted to thank you. Actually been listening to your satsangs and following your meditations for some time. It's zooming out. I've been practicing that. It's really helping.
Good, good.
I just wanted, I've heard you talk about this in the past, but I just wanted your insight on, like you just said, maybe I'm over-identifying with this addiction to food. You know, like I'm kind of struggling what to eat, what not to eat. Part of me knows it's not me. Like I can witness it, but it's like this whole drama keeps playing out day in and day out, and self-loathing and non-acceptance of what is, like a lot of resistance to this, and then the body goes out of whack every time, and then that sense of just resting peacefully among with myself doesn't happen. The self-acceptance doesn't happen.
Yeah. The first thing to realize is this is coming up now because you're able to rest more as a self, and now you can look at this finally from a I'm not saying your mind can, because your mind can't, but you can look at it from a non-judgmental place. Okay, I don't really like this. It'd be nice if it stopped, but it's not really reason enough to judge myself. Mind is doing enough of that anyway. It's very good at that, isn't it? Very efficient. So for me, when I went through very similar, I tried literally everything to try to get it under control. And finally, I arrived at the understanding after much suffering that it's not really about the food or the overeating or even the self-blaming and judgment. That underneath it all, it's about the idea that I can do anything about it at all. And of course, I hated that realization because I wanted an answer that was going to fix it, you know? And my body gets up and walks into the kitchen and goes to the fridge and gets something out and starts eating. And I'm not hungry. I don't want it, don't need it. And there's all these thoughts going on and this really shame and all this is going on at the same time. And then finally getting to the point where I'm saying, I can't do anything about this as the self, as the formlessness. I'm either going to eat this or I'm not. And I'm just watching the body, literally. And at first this was like horrendous because my mind was going, if you admit that you've got no control over this at all, you're going to put on 150 pounds and you're going to be, you know, in real trouble. But after 2-3 days of actually really admitting, I can't do anything about this. And I don't need to do anything about this. It literally began to change. It just, there was one day, the second day, where it was really bad. I think I ate about 3 or 4 times as much, and I was eating a lot anyway at that point, 3 or 4 times as much as usual. It was like something was really kind of saying, are you sure you don't want to try and take control of this again? And it was almost easier because it was so out of control. There was nothing I really felt there's nothing I can do. And I began to see that was the only ever issue with it, really. That it could have been about overspending or drinking too much or whatever it was. This was just what was happening. And it was showing me that I still think I'm a separate doer here. So in the end, I was just like, what happens when because I tried everything else and, you know, in desperation, you go, okay, I'm going to surrender this. I'm going to admit that I'm not the doer. Within a week, it really turned around. Within 30 days, it had stopped completely. Every now and again, you know, mind will try to take the positive. Oh, you really got a handle on that finally, didn't you? You know, like starting to lose some weight now. You're doing really well. And I have to kind of step back from that too. No, I'm not even going to claim the success or the failure, you know, both sides of that.
Get that.
You know, if it started raining, you wouldn't take responsibility for that, would you? No. And yet we go, everything this body's doing is, you know, my fault or whatever, something like that.
It feels like you're driving this out of control car and you just kind of got your foot on the accelerator.
I can't watch. Yeah. And in the end, you just go, I'm just going to sit in the passenger seat now and see what happens when I stop thinking I'm driving this. And of course, it always works every time, but the mind freaks out because it thinks that, what do you mean you're going to give up control completely, you know, or you don't have any control? It's terrifying to mind, but it worked because that was the real issue underneath it, really.
And also when people who love you, they say you're eating too much, you know, you need to lose weight. Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, yeah, no, yeah. And they were waiting for me to say, I'm going to start a diet on Monday. And I'm like, but I ended up saying those things because they wouldn't get it, you know, the people around me. Like if I say, look, I'm not this body and I'm not the doer, they just sort of look at me very strange. So you kind of end up saying what you need to say just to. And then they come later and said, oh, you're losing some weight now. You must have got it under control. You're like, yeah. Inside you're like. No wonder we end up hating ourselves. We're trying to do something we can't ever achieve.
Yeah.
So.
You know, once I was sitting in Tiruvannamalai, Ramana Maharshi's Samadhi shrine, and I was praying to him, and then suddenly I heard this voice, you know, I'm doing the eating.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, I'm doing the eating.
Yeah, it's not you. It's Ramana. Yeah. The trouble is, we go, I'm going to surrender all this stuff. I'm going to give all of this to Krishna, but not this. I need to fix my eating myself. Like or my spending. That was another one for me, overspending. So, no, like you can have those karmic patterns, but not these ones. I need to fix these myself. It's quite funny now looking back, but it was awful at the time. Awful.
Sometimes you feel you have to do the inner work, you have to do the healing, you have to heal yourself and those wounds.
That's the biggest pattern of all, isn't it? Really, I'm the one doing this awakening.
Yeah.
When really, it's total nonsense. We're just watching it unfold. It's funny when you see it, but before that, it's quite painful. I remember, well, very painful. But hopefully something's relaxed a little bit in it while we're talking. It's just
thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. Just see what happens when you let go. My mind will be very sure it's not a good idea, but give it a go anyway. Tried everything else, right? You might as well.
This sounds like the best idea so far.
Yeah. I always found that every option I got to when I was despairing and feeling like an absolute failure in awakening, that was the one that worked, because it was always the last one I went to, The personal doer, I tried everything it could do to fix it. And that all made it worse, of course. Wonderful.
Funny. Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you. Good to talk to you. Last but not least is Don. When you're ready, Don.
Can you hear me?
I can. Nice to talk to you.
Okay. So yesterday I was over at my parents'. I was taking my father to the doctor, and he had like his third broken vertebra in like a year and a half. But I was really frustrated with my parents the day before. And so I watched your video the night before about, just going to them with no expectations and no desire and no anything, just go and don't have any. And usually he doesn't even want my opinion, but my mom has been saying, no, you need to get his input when you're in there. They're 92 and 89, and they've had their 71st wedding anniversary, and they don't think they're out of it, but they kind of are. And for my father, like, this doctor is like, my father's like living in his back room and watching Fox News and listening to Rush Limbaugh, I guess, replays. And and nobody, because he breaks his back, he doesn't see anyone else. So he goes into the doctor, and this doctor is kind of this good old boy. And my father's got this walking stick that he made when he was hunting rabbits, and he's just the southern Western mindset of guns are everything. You have to need 30,000 guns because the government's going to come take them from you. And I realized he's really not paying attention to his back because he's so excited to see this person that he sees as a kindred spirit. So he really needed me there because, so finally at the end he asked, which he never does. He said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think you need to get on his surgical calendar. And if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling better in a week or two, when they finally get you on, we'll cancel," which is kind of unfair but the doctor heard me saying it. So I felt like, and so I felt like it was just some of the barrier, but it was.
Why do you think he asked your opinion this time when he hasn't done before? What do you think was different?
Well, I did release what you had said. I was really a lot of pain. So maybe I didn't have any expectation and didn't care. And I had plan B, which I don't think he was going to like, but I had decided I was going to put plan B into place. to take care of myself and my relationship. And
spiritually speaking, mine says that by you want to be heard, you want him to value your opinion. And mine says that by thinking about it and projecting on it, that's how you're going to get that outcome. And that's never worked. So the moment you stop projecting and you go in, excuse me, you go into to see your father without these expectations. And we've been talking a lot about coming at it fresh, haven't we? From no projections at all, no expectations of what's going to occur. Then you get what you want, or you start to get what you want. That's the thing that I want to zoom in on here, is that you actually started to get what you want, and that just to see that you'd made that connection between the two things, you turning up empty of concepts and your father actually behaving differently when you do.
Well, and I really didn't want to give I really didn't want to have a say or opinion, but so I really was kind of shocked when he asked. So I just blurted out. I didn't have a plan because I didn't expect it. And, this is really not something that I want him to feel comfortable and make the decision. And, even later I circled back and I said, my mom was upset. Well, is the doctor not going to, worry about that? Well, I said, he heard my manipulation, so he knew what I was doing, and he could have said no if he didn't like it. But I'm figuring at 92.
Manipulation?
Well, I just said.
Or was it the honest opinion of?
It was my honest opinion.
Yeah.
And it had my father, when I talked to him later, he said, well, that's what I had planned to do, but I realized he had lost focus on what he had planned to do when he went in there. And so that was when I put in but it was more, but I did go over there. No, I don't expect anything. And I really don't like giving my opinion that much. With my mom, I'm more like, I realize she's sort of intimidated by the circumstances and I have to. Yeah. But with him, he's pretty clear on what he wants. But I realize has not been around other human beings in so long, and he's so excited to be here, he's forgotten what he's here for. Yeah. And so I just went ahead, but it was very much around, I had listened to that video the night before, just drop expectations.
That's where you can deepen as well, isn't it? Now, like, what other expectations have I got? Because the longer we seem to have known another being, and of course our parents we've known the longest, the more expectations and projections there'll be, and the more challenging it might be to actually show up empty. So it might take a little consistency with that, but you're already seeing some benefits of it from what you're saying, and it'll just continue to do. Our parents, our children, our siblings, they're the ones that tend to challenge us most in this area. We've got lots of ideas about how it's gone, lots of previous experience to draw upon in the mind. So it can be quite tough at first, but it sounds like you've done really well at applying it and really giving yourself to it.
Well, you've done really well for someone whose passenger seat is on the wrong side of the road. So I will. But I was thinking, you just said our parents, our children, and I was thinking you were saying our parents are children. Mm-hmm. And at this point, they really are. And and they're sort of in that role. But my mom's best friend dropped in when I was dropping my father off, and she's moved to the mountains. And so my mom's two best friends have moved away, and they're, probably closer to my age. And I was watching her. My sister had died years ago. And so this is my mom's closest friend as a woman. All her other women friends have passed. And she was crying. And, clearly she does not trust my feminine side enough to open as much as she was collapsing to this woman.
Is this the next projection now that you can let go of, that you're telling me right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to call it like I see it, right? And here you're having this experience and it's coming as a direct reflection of some kind of some area where your relationship with her can deepen, where you can, and it's happening because your relationship is trying to deepen into a more expansive form of love. So life is going to be immediately, the moment you let go, life's going to say, okay, let go here too, you know. It will show you, and families are really, really good at showing us those places, aren't they?
Well, I was trying to explain to her the prognosis from the doctor, and the other woman was standing there in the kitchen, and my mom's trying to like placate her friend and glad she's seeing her and trying to understand and trying to get. So there was a lot going on in that moment, and my projection may have been a fallacy.
It's gonna flicker in and out. All you can really control is how much desire you have to really experience life from and as the self, the infinite self, which is empty of projections, isn't it? So it sounds like you're on track with that, and you're applying this in the most challenging area of your life, most possibly. So that's also amazing. You know, it's easy to not project onto someone that we don't have any history with anyway, or we don't really know them that well or whatever. So
well,
right,
I'm trying to find a way to convey the infinite to them now at this really.
Do they want to know?
I think everybody wants to know.
That might be another projection that you need to examine there.
Okay.
As awakening deepens, and I get it, I went through that. I'm going to tell the world, and especially I'm going to tell my biological family about this. You know, everyone needs to know. And I was quite surprised to discover that a lot of people don't want to know, and a deepening, and then that's only because they're not ready, and it's okay. They're still enamored with thoughts and their thought idea about themselves. As awakening deepens for you, there's a deeper and deeper respect for everyone else's experience, whatever experience they're having, although it may be pleasant or unpleasant, is exactly what they must need to be going through right now. And if that's still identified with thoughts, then we can respect them in that. And eventually, you know, I don't really end up talking like this in the supermarket. I'm just like talking to everyone as if they're a separate being, because that's who they think they are. And I've got no wish to disturb them. Those that want to know who they really are, I'm all for it, obviously. But everyone else, I've got no urge to try to convert anybody or convince anybody or anything like that. And most of all, that love, that respect deepens there in our own biological family. Like, they are who they are, and they're at their own stage of evolution, and they're not really my parents. They're not really my siblings. They're not really my children. I can respect the self appearing as them. So it might save you a lot of heartache there, if you can really. Does the self really try to change anyone or convince anyone?
Mm-hmm.
So from that place, those that want to find out, and I'm not saying your parents don't, but it's not coming from a trying to change them, trying to convince them. If you're having to work hard at it, then it's probably not meant to be. Not right now, at least.
Yeah, it's not coming from a place of I need them to see. It's more coming from I want them to receive love.
You can do that in the most ordinary way. You can talk about the football. You can talk about whatever you have in common with them. And that might be not so much now that you're really on the pathway, but you know, I saw my parents a couple of nights ago, and we ended up talking about politics and football and what I was cooking that night. And, you know, a whole range of topics about mutual friends. And that was an intimacy in that conversation that they wouldn't have. I was really there, really listening, and really showed up for them. And that's love expressing itself, isn't it? And they felt heard and listened to. And it didn't really matter what we were talking about. It's really
Yes, because you're
more important that you're listening, that you're there.
Yes, because your football is all wrong too. You're on the wrong side, or ours is
If
all
you get
wrong.
started
I
on
think
that one, your football isn't football. You carry the ball. So
I know that. I know that. I'm just and I know we drive on the wrong side of the road too.
yeah,
So
that's a whole different
we
conversation.
have it.
Anyway, I think we've got our point across, haven't we? So you're doing really well. Just you'll be asked to check these projections that are even deeper, perhaps more unconscious right now, moving into
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you, Dan. Okay, so that is where we will leave it for today. Thank you everyone that wrote in and that asked live on the session today. Appreciate your input and bravery in sharing. I know it's not always easy. And we've had a good laugh here today on Satsang, but I know this is one of the most challenging and yet most rewarding things any human being could do. And I just want to say that you're not alone. If you're struggling and if there's something going on for you right now, and perhaps you didn't have the ability to put your hand up, you couldn't find that in yourself, that I am here with you and you're always surrounded by many beings that want to help. You're never, even if you're physically alone, you're never spiritually alone, ever. So I hope that helps. And we can have a laugh too. Sometimes we have to be serious. Sometimes we can enjoy ourselves. Thank you. Namaste.